So let's talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990 film. I think this is a perfect way to end our Mirage Volume 1 reviews, especially since this movie adapts a lot of the Volume 1 issues. And yeah, I just recently watched it again. I mean, I've seen it plenty of times as a kid, but this is the first time that I ever watched the movie after having read the Volume 1. And now I appreciate this movie even more than I did before. I gotta say, this is one of the greatest comic book adaptations ever made. In fact, I would actually say it's my personal favorite comic book adaptation. I think it's better than any Marvel movie. I think Blade is really close, but this is my personal favorite comic book movie ever. A lot of that has to do with nostalgia, but a lot of that also has to do with it was greatly made. Like, the special effects still hold up, especially the animatronics for the Turtles. I have no idea why they didn't do that for the Michael Bay movies. I hate the over-reliance on CGI in all of these new movies. Like, I think, like this, like I can watch it today and it still holds up. Like, it's still that good. A lot of that has to do with Jim Henson, obviously, because his Jim Henson Creature Shop was involved in this. In fact, I believe this was actually the last movie that Jim Henson was a part of before he died. But yeah, the special effects, the story, it does have some flaws, and there are some things I wish they would have changed. But overall, I think it's a great movie. It's one of the highest grossing independent films of all time. I believe it actually was until The Blair Witch beat it. So it had a budget of, according to Wikipedia, $13.5 million, and it made $202 million in the box office. The funny thing, though, is that a lot of studios actually turned down this movie. I believe Walt Disney, Columbia Pictures, MGM, Orion, Paramount, Warner Brothers, they all turned it down. No one wanted to make it because they all thought it was going to be a box office bomb. And it later went on to become a huge box office success and one of the highest grossing independent films of all time. Like, I can just imagine being one of the studios that turned it down only to see it succeed. So this was directed by Steve Barron. I believe this is one of the first feature films he directed. Before this movie, he mostly directed a lot of music videos. In fact, he was known for directing like Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, Money for Nothing by Dire Straits, Take on Me by Aha. That was basically what he was known for. And then this somehow fell into his lap. And I gotta say, he knocked it out of the park. Not only that, but I actually want to see his vision, like his true vision for this movie. And the reason that I say that is because I was doing some background digging on this. And according to a podcast called I Was There, the director, Steve Barron, was actually fired near the end of production of this movie because the producers thought the film was becoming too dark. And now that makes me wonder, oh man, like, what was his original version? Like, I wish we can get his final cut of this. Because a lot of things he wanted to add in was, like, for example, he wanted to have a punk rock soundtrack. One of the characters in this, his name is Danny. He's one of the low points in the movie for me. I don't really care for his character, but we see him with the Sid Vicious t-shirt constantly throughout the movie. Every time we see him, he's wearing some type of Sid Vicious t-shirt. Anyone who doesn't know who Sid Vicious is, he was the bassist for the Sex Pistols, one of the coolest, most well-known punk rock bands of all time. And Steve Barron actually wanted to have a punk rock soundtrack. He wanted this to kind of capture that gritty 80s feel that the comic book had. And the producers actually came in and they put a stop to that, and they wanted something more commercial friendly, which is why we get like MC Hammer and the Turtle Power song and all that stuff. But yet he wanted it to be like, have more of like a punk theme. And yeah, his vision was, it was more graphic, more dark, more gritty, more in line with the comics. There's an earlier scene where Shredder's right-hand man, Tatsu, in a fit of rage, he punches one of the Foot Clan ninjas and ends up killing him. Or at least he ends up punching one of the Foot Clan ninjas and they drop, and then everyone surrounds him and they're like, oh, he's breathing, he's going to be okay. And if you look at everyone's reactions is a lot grimmer. And the reason for that is because he actually died in the original script, and when they shot it, the character actually died. So Tatsu, like in a fit of rage, he killed one of his own men. But then they later on dubbed him breathing, and one of the other characters saying, you know, oh, he's going to be okay. So yeah, it was basically, it was going to be a lot darker. It wasn't going to be like completely filled with a bunch of one-liners and jokes and family-friendly stuff. It was going to be a lot more grittier and stuff. And I kind of wish we stayed with that vision. I kind of wish we got a final cut where I get a director's cut where Steve Barron basically is like, we cut this, re-edit this into what you originally saw it at. I think that was a lost opportunity. It's never going to happen. The Turtles now are just they're basically family friendly. I get it. That's how I got into the Turtles. My vision of the Turtles was always family friendly. It wasn't really like dark and gritty. In fact, it wasn't until I read and did reviews for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Urban Legends, which was originally Volume 3 that ended up getting retconned. It wasn't until I saw the brutality in that. And then, of course, I had people in comments saying, oh, you know, you should check out the original Mirage run. It was originally a dark and violent series. It's like I always heard that, but I never really got to witness it myself until recently, you know, with this series, with the Volume 1 series. But yeah, I kind of wish we hadn't gotten that movie. I kind of wish we had a movie more faithful. I mean, this is basically as faithful as you're going to get to the original Mirage run. But of course, they had to family friendly and kidify it up a bit. But apparently, yes, Steve Barron wanted it to be more darker and grittier, and he was actually fired for that because the producers saw it as being too dark of a movie. So I kind of wish we got to see that version. Like, that would have been so cool. The funny thing is that it's still considered too dark by some people's standards. Apparently, Jim Henson was really upset about the level of violence in the movie. The actress Judith Hoag, I can't pronounce that last name, but Judith, she played April O'Neil. She actually found the movie, the final version, to be too violent as well. And I'm just kind of thinking, really? I know, like, I believe Turtles got some flack, like the original cartoon series. I know Power Rangers, which came out maybe a couple years after this, got some flack for being too violent for, you know, a kid's show. And it's kind of weird because I go back and I watch and I'm like, this was too violent for you guys? Like, I don't know. But yeah, to be honest, then apparently Judith had a lot of problems with this. She wasn't brought back for the second movie because apparently she was she did nothing but complain on set. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is just what I've been reading and, you know, digging up and stuff. But apparently she complained a lot about the schedule, about the amount of violence, about the way certain things were done. Apparently she hated her hairstyle and stuff. She complained about that. They originally wanted to put April in the yellow jumpsuit, and she put a nix to that. Like, she was like, no way am I doing that. So that's why in the very beginning you see a scene where she's wearing a yellow raincoat. That's like as close as you're going to get to the original look. Because, yeah, apparently Judith was shooting down a lot of things. Elias Koteas, who played Casey Jones, he actually seemed to have more of a favorable opinion to the Turtles. He basically just said that he took it as, like, apparently when the movie was being made, it was during a dark point in his life. And he just thought, well, you know what? This is something different. I'm hanging out and doing scenes with a bunch of giant turtles. Let's just have fun with it. And so his thing was kind of, which is kind of weird that we don't see Casey Jones in the second movie at all. I think he might be mentioned once or something. He does make an appearance in the third movie. Elias comes back to play him in the third movie, but he doesn't make any appearance whatsoever in the second one. Which is kind of interesting since he plays a huge part in this movie. Yeah, apparently Judith didn't really care for this. Speaking of Judith, apparently she was also co-starring with Robin Williams in the movie called Cadillac Man. And Robin Williams was a huge fan of the Ninja Turtles. And I guess during, like, between shooting, because Judith was shooting Cadillac Man as well as the Ninja Turtles, or at least she was prepping for the Ninja Turtles, and Robin Williams was aware of that. So he would constantly just give her a bunch of information about April, and show her like his comic book collection of the Ninja Turtles and just basically try to get her prepped for this. And it's like, man, the more I hear about Robin Williams, the more it just saddens me that he's gone. Because that dude, I kind of wish Robin Williams had, since he's such a huge fan, I kind of wish he had a part in this movie. I don't know what role you would give him. Probably not one of the Turtles. Maybe he could have played April's boss or something. I don't know. It would have been nice to have seen him since he's such a huge fan of it. Yeah, I mentioned Jim Henson. This was the last movie he made. The turtle costumes were apparently really, really cumbersome. And just a lot of the tricks that they did to get around the costume, I thought was really, really cool. So before we get into that, the costume was originally made out of fiberglass, and then it got remolded out of clay, and then they produced molds of to cast the body in foam rubber latex. Apparently it took like 18 weeks to do. The suits were a huge problem on sets. Apparently, like they would, there's a lot of wear and tear. They constantly had to have backup like limbs and stuff like that on set. So like when one got damaged or whatever, they would have to constantly like replace different body parts. In fact, I recently saw a video where they showed like the suits, like what happened after the movies were done, and a lot of them are just so damaged beyond repair that it looks like something out of like the original Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics. Like it looks horrifying. Like it looks like you can take the suits and put them in a horror movie and it'll work. Apparently there's like a company that tried to retouch and fix some of the suits, but some of them it's just way too much of an issue. But I think for as troublesome as using the suits were, I think it was great that they did, because it came out amazing. Funny thing was that apparently Roger Corman wanted to do a Turtles movie, and his idea was basically to just have a mask, the shell, and then they would just use green paint on a human. And I am so glad that we did not go in that direction for this movie. Like I'm glad they went through the trouble of the animatronics and stuff, because like I said, like I hated the Michael Bay CGI, and obviously they didn't have like the greatest CGI. Did they even have CGI in 1990? Yeah, I mean they could have easily gone in that direction, Roger Corman direction, with just a cheap mask, a shell, and then just painting people's bodies green. But I'm so glad they didn't. But yeah, they basically had to work around the turtle stuff. Like the suits were too big to fit into the manhole. Like they had to make the manholes like bigger so that the suits can fit in. Apparently the suits were very cumbersome, very heavy, and because of that, the stunt actors couldn't fight as fast as they could without the suit. So they actually did a really cool thing where they would shoot the fight scenes at 22 or 23 frames per second. And then that way when you sped it up to 24 frames per second, everything appears a lot smoother and faster. Like the dialogue, for example. They would do the dialogue scenes and they would shoot the dialogue at 23 frames per second. And then they would play it at normal speed of 24 frames per second so that everything appeared more sharper. It's kind of cool how they came up with like techniques to work around the suits and all the issues that it gave them. But yeah, this was just it was fantastic. I think Steve Barron did a great job. I'm really, like I said, I'm really sad that we didn't get to see his version of it, like his true version of it. I think Judith played a good April O'Neil. Elias played a perfect Casey Jones. We had Corey Feldman doing the voice for Donatello, Brian Tochi doing the voice for Leonardo, Robbie Riss doing the voice for Michelangelo. I believe Raphael did, the guy who did, it was Josh Pius. He did the suit as well as the voice. I believe he's the only one that did that. Kevin Clash did the voice for Splinter. Splinter again, looks great. I mean, there are times where you can tell Splinter. I mean, there are plenty of times when you can tell he's an animatronic, but it still looks really cool. So this was written by Bobby Herbeck, whose writing credits was he did an episode of Different Strokes, he did an episode of The Jeffersons, and he did about 3 episodes of Small Wonder TV series, and then he did the script for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that's it. He's never written anything else ever again. But he did the original story, and he did the first draft. And then apparently the studios, I guess, didn't like it enough, so they hired Todd W. Langan to do the story, to touch it up. So he did, his credit before this was an episode of Pursuit of Happiness and a couple episodes of The Wonder Years. And then somehow he landed doing a rewrite of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He would also go on to do Secret of the Ooze as well. But yeah, Todd was called in to do a page one rewrite. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's basically where a studio has a script that they find interesting. They're like, we like the script, but the version we have now is unworkable. Either the budget is too high, or there's things like, it doesn't fit our criteria. We love the prospect and the idea and the premise, or whatever, but it's just not working for us. So what they would do is sometimes they'll have the original writer rewrite, but other times they'll actually hire another writer to do a complete revision of off of the original script, using like notes and feedback from the studios. That's actually what my job basically entails. For anyone who doesn't know, I've said this before, but if this is like your first video or anything like that, my professional job is I'm a screenwriter. I've written original scripts that have been optioned, but most of my money comes from doing page one rewrites, which is what Todd Langan did for this movie. So yeah, basically studios will come to me. They're like, hey, we have this script from this writer. We like the idea behind it, but it's just not working for us. Here's some things that we would like to see in it. And they would hand it to me, and then I would rewrite the script to better fit their vision of what they want. Yeah, that's what Todd Langan did for this movie. I think he did a really good job. I don't know what Bobby's original version was, but apparently it wasn't up to snuff. And so Todd came in to do a rewrite, and that's the version that we get now. I think it turned out really, really good. So originally I was going to do the whole movie review here, but I wasn't expecting to do this entire movie trivia. And since we're already somewhat close to the 20-minute mark, I don't want to have like a really long video. So I'll actually break this up here. So this video will just kind of be like the background behind the movie and the makings and behind the scenes stuff. And then the very next episode that I do will be the actual movie review, where we go through the entire movie and break it down and talk about it and stuff like that. So anyways, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little like behind the scenes of the Ninja Turtles movie. And yeah, we got one more movie to go, and then volume 1 will be completely done. We've already finished all the comics, and all we got left is the movie review. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this. Hope you learned something new, and hope you enjoyed yourself. Take care, everybody. Later.